Again, Joel, your Bisaya reader, and welcome back to another video. And for today, I am going to present you the books I've read for the month of March. So basically, this is going to be my March 2020 reading wrap-up. So for the month of March, I have read only 4 books, the same with the number of books I've read for the month of January. And for the genres, I read all over the place. I've read one thriller, to be specific, under a subgenre, legal thriller. I've read fantasy, I have read science fiction, and I have read literary fiction, or with a twist of psychological thriller, but I think it's more of literary fiction. For the categories, I have read 1 young adult and 3 adult books. So yeah, these are the books that I've read for the month of March. I'm going to present to you again on chronological order based on when I finished reading them. So the first book I finished reading for the month of March is going to be The Association by Sharon Ann Ziegler. I got this copy from the author itself. She sent it to me in exchange of an honest review. She's a great woman and I love working with her. So for the synopsis of this, we are following our main character, and she is a retired lawyer and newlywed. They move into the new place, and then she just was discouraged of her profession, and then she decided suddenly to go back and practice law again. And then she stumbled upon these people who are complaining against this company, and this company is so-called The Association. They are actually land we call the company that sells lands, develop properties. And then during investigation, she discovered dishonesty, corruption, and a lot of frauds and on the association. So it's basically the main character against the biggest company, which is very influential and has a lot of power when it comes to the justice system set in this story. So basically, this is really the first time I've read a legal thriller, but I didn't really expect I will be liking this one. This book started really slow, to be honest. I was actually really hesitant if this book is really for me. The first half was really boring. It was really slow. I still wasn't able to get what is going to happen. It was really confusing also, and really complicated, because there's some stuff that is really because again, I think I feel that way because this is the first legal thriller I've heard, so there's a lot of legal terms that I'm not really familiar of. But thanks to this book, I have learned a lot of new stuff, new words, so it really enhanced my vocabulary. But overall, the plot was unexpected. It was really fast-paced at the last part. Characters needs improvement, but I gave this one 4 out of 5 star. The next book I've read is probably the biggest book I've read so far this year, and this is going to be The Blinding Knife by Brent Wicks. This is part of my Adult Science Fiction 2020 Readathon. This is the second book of the series I pledged to finish, which is the Lightbringer series. The first book I read last February, which is The Black Prism. I gave it 5 stars. It was awesome. This is the second book. Really thick. Adult fantasy, The Blinding Knife, and this is really bad. I do have some issues with the first book, especially with the writing style and how the author, described female characters, how vulgar and sexist he was. In this, he still continues doing that. But it kind of affect my mood, but it kind of really not affect the story as a whole. But I have a lot of problems with this one. The first is that this one was really boring. I think this is completely different from the first book. The first book was really fast-paced, a lot of really interesting stuff. The magic system, the introduction of the magic system, the world building, and the introduction of characters really got into me. So why I was really invested on the first book. And this one, I was not really able to find myself I wasn't able to find myself gravitating towards this book, because it was really disappointing, because the way the first book ended, I was expecting that things will be, conflicts will develop, characters will grow, things will change. But instead, in this book, it was just stretch. Whatever happened on the first book, it was really stretched, and I do feel that there were some unnecessary things that should have been done in this book. And then there's also a lot of unnecessary scenarios that if we're going to remove it from the book, it will not really affect the bigger picture or will not really matter. So yeah. So if we're going to summarize this book, it will just only around 200 or 300 pages compared to almost 700 pages. How many pages is this? Almost 700 pages. So quite disappointing. For those of you who don't know, guys, I highly recommend if you are a big fan of high fantasy with military subgenre, military fantasy. I'm not going to tell you the synopsis of the second book because again I don't want to spoil you. The first book, The Plot Prism, the first book of the Lightbringer series, is that we follow our main characters. He is called the Prism, and basically he's called the Prism because he's the most powerful person or individual in the world set by the author. In this world, we do have these individuals who have the capabilities or the powers to convert light that they see into a solid material, and we call them drafters. So we have different kinds of drafters. We have monochromes, bichromes. Monochromes, they can draft one color. Bichromes, they can draft two colors. And then we have polychromes, which is really rare, and the Prism is basically part of the polychrome because he can draft all colors in the Prism, like 7 colors. And every color that you draft will depend. For example, if you can draft green, you can manipulate rocks. If you can draft yellow, you can manipulate artifacts, shields, or craft some things. If you can draft violet, you can manipulate threads. If you can draft red, you can manipulate fire, and so on and so forth. It's really interesting. That's the one thing I really love about the first book, the magic system. The political intrigues and the relationships and motivations of the character in the first book really, really blew me away. That's why I gave it 5 stars. But this one, the development of the story was really slow. Yeah, I was really disappointed. So I gave it 3 stars. There were some things that happened also. There were some actions, a lot of magics, and but again, it was really disappointing. I was really expecting a lot from the book because I really loved the first book, but the second book was really flat for me. Now, on the third book I've read for the month of March, I've read the science fiction, and this is a young adult, and this is a sequel also, the second book of the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson, and this is Starsight. I have read Skyward last year or 2 years ago. I'm not sure if it's 2018 or 2019, but one thing I'm really sure of is that I really love Skyward. I do have some issues with Skyward. It was really slow at start, dragging, but if you know or you're a fan of Brandon Sanderson, you're used to it because Brandon Sanderson really likes to build his world. That's why the first part or the first half of these books are really slow and really, what you call this one? Exhausting? But everything is kind of worth it when you reach at the end. That's what happened to Skyward. Skyward, I almost did not finish it. I almost placed it down, but I pushed through because people told me that you need to finish because things are epic or things are going to get real on the last pages. And yeah, they were not wrong. They were correct, and I was really glad I was able to finish Skyward. It was really great. And that's why this is one of my most anticipated reads of 2019, and unfortunately there were no available copies. That's why I just got it a couple of weeks ago, early March, early first week of March, and I immediately read this because I've been waiting for months to read this book. And again, this book suffered the same issues of Skyward. Again, knowing that this is a second book, you are not expecting that there will be another world building. Because again, second book should be able to progress whatever the first book has left. And this one, basically again, Brandon Sanderson did his formula where it is first half world building, then last half will just make you crazy. The first half of this book was again really boring, which I really did not expect on a second or the sequel, because I thought we're done with the world building. But this is not a spoiler. On this one, he takes you again to another world with only limited characters. Not all the characters in the first book that you knew will be here on the second book. Only some of the characters that you knew or you discovered on the first book will be in the second book. And he took these characters into a new world. Therefore, he has an excuse again to do some world building, introduce new set of characters, which is kind of disappointing. I was really furious reading the first half of this one, probably first 2/3 of this book, but from a 2-star read after reading the first 2/3, after reading the last third or the last pages of this book, from 2 stars I made it 5 stars because I don't want to spoil you guys, but again, it's Brandon Sanderson. Expect things to blow your mind away, not literally, but to impress you in the last pages of his books. For those of you who don't know, I don't want to talk about more about the second book because I don't want to spoil you guys. The first book, which is Skyward, we are following Spensa. She is a aspiring pilot. She is a son of a used to be very famous pilot, but her father rather, gone rogue and got crazy and killed some of his comrades, and then during the battle backed out, and her father was tagged as a coward. Therefore, that brand, even though Spensa has nothing to do with what her father did, is also brand as the daughter of the coward. So every time she tries to attempt to reach her goals, to reach her dreams to be a pilot, she's always branded as the daughter of the coward, which also really greatly affects her reputation in the school. Basically, it is set in a world where humans are trying to survive against the attacks of Krells. These are the aliens. Humans are really hiding underground because time by time aliens are attacking their place, and they're just really fighting for survival, and their only way to defend themselves are from flying ships. That's why pilots are really the biggest hero in the story. That's why Spensa, the main character, really wants to be pilot, really wants to be like her father, not on the coward side. Yeah. And this is a hard sci-fi, and if you haven't read Skyward, just read it. You will be able to suffer the first half as very dragging, very boring, but again, things will blow your mind in the last part. The same on this one. This one I think is way better than Skyward. That's for me, personally. Now, down to the last book. The last book I've read for the month of March is going to be The Vegetarian by Han Kang. This is my first book that I've read that won a Man Booker Prize. To be specific, I just discovered that Man Booker Prize and Man Booker International Prize are different. Man Booker Prize are is an award given only to those books that are published in the US, and also to honor or recognize US authors. Man Booker International Prize is outside the US. So this is from Korea. This is the first ever Man Booker International Prize winner way back in 2007. And this one is really controversial and really had bad reviews and bad ratings on Goodreads. That's why I was really kind of hesitant on picking this one up. It's just really thin. You can probably read this in one sitting or within a day. The main reason I picked this one up because I was really intrigued. I included this, by the way, on my try to read a chapter book tag, the first chapter book tag. I will just, if you haven't watched that one, it was really fun. This is the third time I did it. I read this one, and this is actually, out of the 5 books I've read with their first chapters, this is actually the last or the least of my priority. But I was really shocked that out of the 5 books, this is the first book I've finished reading. I don't know what happened. But this one really caught my attention. It was really intriguing because the first chapter of this book is around. There's actually no chapters. It's just divided into 3 parts, where the first part is around 60 pages, and there's only 188 pages in this book. So after reading the first 60 pages, I was like, okay, I was really invested. And what did I read? So again, we are following our main character, which is she is a Korean. She's married, no kids, and then suddenly decided to be a vegetarian because she's having these dreams where it's kind of graphic and violent, and that made her decide she's going to be vegetarian because of her dreams. And yeah, this decision affected her marriage, and then it also affected her relationship with her parents and her sister. This is a kind of weird book. I think the word weird is the best description for this one. It's weird, it's vivid, it's disturbing. Guys, this is not for the faint-hearted people out there. It's not for kids, to be honest. It's definitely an adult. It's really weird and disturbing. There's a lot of graphic scenes, a lot of trigger warnings also for those who are suffering with mental health issues, depressions, rape. There's a lot of trigger warnings for this. That's why I can think a lot of people don't like this book. But I gave this 4 out of 5 stars because I do think, even though I really struggled to really connect to the character or to really appreciate the entire picture that the story is trying to deliver, I still was able to appreciate the messages, or yeah, the messages that the author wants to get across to her readers. I do feel that there's a lot of layers in this book that are really relevant and that can be really discussed. There's a lot of layers that are very relatable to the readers. There's a lot of pieces here, moving pieces, that might affect your might affect your feelings, or might find yourself gravitating towards the piece or not. It's actually a case-to-case basis, guys. It depends on where the reader is coming from, or it really depends on the reader, because this is really polarizing. You will not be able to understand or really appreciate this book if you cannot really relate, or you don't have that prior what do you call this one, prior experiences, or you're not really familiar how it feels like to be in that situation where the main character is suffering. So if you have a good empathizing skills, is there a word, empathizing? I'm not really sure. If you really are an expert in empathy, you can definitely connect to the main character. Again, I consider this as an art, which I do really appreciate. It was really confusing, it was really disturbing and weird, but it made sense in the end. It's something that you won't really get as a whole, but you felt it. And that's, for me, is art. And this one, that's what this book made me feel. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't a perfect book. There's a lot of room for improvements, but I can see why this one won the first ever Man Booker International Prize. And yes, if you are looking for a very disturbing, vivid, weird read and very short, just one sitting, I highly suggest this one. But again, a lot of trigger warnings. You need to check first if you can really, it's really safe for you to read this book. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. These are the books rather, that I have read for the month of March, and hopefully I'll be able to read more books next month, which is April. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and my name again is Joel. If you like this video, please click the subscribe button, leave some comments below if you want to talk, and yeah, click the like button also. Have a great day and take care, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.